Hi everyone, I'm Celine from Blue Calla Patterns and welcome to the final video for the Meadowsweet Mini Crossbody Bag. At the end of the last video, we completed the main bag, and if that's all you want to make, then that's fine. You don't really need this video. But if you want to make the removable pouch, then this video will cover that part. So we're just going to set aside the main bag for now. And the first thing that we are going to do is sew up the 1/2-inch swivel connector straps. So they're called the pouch swivel connectors. You should have 2 pieces in your exterior fabric. And we are going to start by drawing a line on the wrong side through the center. And then you're going to need your 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape, and you're going to apply a strip down the center over that center line. Then remove the tape backing and fold in each half of the strap in towards that center line. Then do the same for the second one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch along both of these longer edges with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so these are both top stitched. Now you're going to need your 1/2-inch swivels. And you're going to slip a connector through the D-ring of the swivel. So you want where the raw edges are, you want that to be hidden inside. And just fold that in half, hold it in place, and do the same for the second. Now we're just going to sew here about in the middle of the strap just to hold the 2 layers together and prevent them from moving. Okay, so these are ready. Now we're going to take one of your zipper pouch exterior pieces. It doesn't matter which one. I'm using 2 different, but yours are probably looking the same. So I'm going to take the floral one, and then I am going to measure 1 inch down from the corner and just make a little mark. And you're going to baste a connector at that 1 inch mark, and you're going to leave 3/4 of an inch of the pouch swivel connector strap sticking out the side, and you're going to do that on this side as well. Okay, so you want to leave 3/4 of an inch of the strap. If it's easier, you can make a mark. at 3/4 of an inch. Okay, and then I'm going to go and baste those in place. Okay, so these are basted on. We're just going to set that aside for now. And you're going to need your 3 card slot pieces and flip them so that they are wrong side facing up. So it's a little bit hard to tell because I'm using waterproof canvas. The front and the back kind of looks the same on camera, but they are wrong side facing up here. Now, along the bottom edge, draw a line all the way across 1/2 inch from the bottom. And I hope you should see that on the camera. And you're doing that for all 3 pieces. Okay, so this is going to be at the bottom edge of your card slot, so try to remember that. Okay, and then along the top edge, you're going to draw a line 1 inch from the top. So I'm just going to rotate it so it's easier for me to do this. Okay, so 1 inch here from the top and 1/2 inch here from the bottom. Okay, now you're going to need double-sided tape. So we are going to put a strip of 1/4 inch double-sided tape along that very bottom edge of your card slots. Very sticky. Okay, and then for each one, you're going to remove the tape backing and then bring up that bottom edge with the tape. So this little 1/2 inch section, you're pretty much folding it in half. You want the bottom edge to be at that line, that 1/2 inch line that you drew. Now, be careful which kind of tape you use. You want to make sure that whatever tape you use is sticky enough to hold this, but it won't gum up your needle too badly and mess up your stitching. Okay, and then we're doing that for all 3. Okay, now you're going to need your 1/2 inch wide double-sided tape. So with the 1/2 inch tape, you're putting a strip along the very top edge of your card slots. Okay, then you're going to remove that tape backing. And again, this time you're folding the 1-inch section in half and bringing that top edge to meet the line that you drew. And you're doing that for all 3 pieces. Okay, so this is the wrong side and this is the right side of our card slots. So now we're going to go over to the machine. Oh, I got a pen mark or something. Some hair. Okay. So now we're going to go over to the machine and we are going to top stitch along the top folded edge. So that is the 1/2 inch wide section that has been folded over. You're going to top stitch along that top edge only. Do not top stitch along the bottom edge. So now you're going to need, I'm just going to trim my threads here, you're going to need one of your zipper pouch lining pieces, doesn't matter which one, and you're going to place your first card slot piece 1 inch from the top edge. So my ruler here is 1 inch wide, or I can use the one inch down from on the cutting mat here. And you're going to place that top stitched edge right at that 1 inch mark below the top edge. Just going to use some clips to hold that in place. So try as best as you can to make sure that the card slots are sewn nice and straight. And we're going to sew this down along the bottom edge. And it's not a top stitching, it's an actual line of stitching along the bottom edge. Okay, now you're going to take another card slot piece, make sure that you have the top stitch edge facing the top, and you're going to place that 1/2 inch below this card slot edge. Use clips to hold it in place again. And then again, you're sewing along the bottom edge. And again, we're repeating the same thing with the last card slot piece. sewing along the bottom edge again. Now while we're at the machine, let's just do a quick basting stitch to attach the card slots on the outer edges here. So now we want to sew the card slots down the middle. And I'm going to use a pencil and do faint lines with a pencil. Now we know the card slots are 10 1/4 inch wide. So try to center 10 inches of a ruler in the middle and then make a mark at the center, which is 5 inches. Just do a faint little mark at the top edge of each card slot. Now you're going to start sewing at this bottom mark, backstitch, go up to this top edge here, backstitch, and then up again, backstitch, and then up again and backstitch a couple of times. The reason why we're doing a backstitch at the top of each card slot is just to reinforce it to make sure the stitching never comes apart. So obviously this is much wider than a credit card is, so we want to sew in a little bit so that it's pretty much the exact width for a snug fit for a credit card. So I am making a mark at 3 3/4 inches from this center line of sewing. And again, you're doing the same thing at the top edge of every single card slot piece and then at the bottom. And you're going to sew this line exactly like you did this center line. So I'm going to now do it 3 3/4 inches on the other side of that center line. And then we're going to sew both of these. Okay, so now we have our 6 card slots ready to go. You can insert a card just to make sure that it fits. So now we're going to do the assembly of the pouch, and it's going to be very similar to when we did the front exterior zipper pocket on the main bag. So we're going to make a mark at the top corners, 3/4 of an inch in at each top corner. And then again, we're placing the last zipper that we have, that we prepared in an earlier video. You're going to place that in between those marks, clip it, and then just baste it in place with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now you're going to take one of your exterior pieces, it doesn't matter which one, and you're going to place that. So now they are right sides together. So it's hard to tell, but this is right side facing up, this is right side facing up. And now I'm placing this wrong side facing up so that they are right sides together. And again, it's important to match up the top corners. Then we're going to sew all the way across with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, so these are sewn to the zipper, and again we have that same situation where we cannot press. So we are going to do like we did for the zipper panels and start by clipping those bottom edges together. And then while we're top stitching, we're going to finger press and gently tug the layers away from the zipper. Now, when we're top stitching this pouch, we're not going to top stitch all the way across. You're only going to top stitch along the zipper. So you're going to start here at the folded end of the zipper tab, going to back stitch and then top stitch all the way until you get to the opening of the zipper here. You're going to stop and you're going to back stitch again. Okay, so these two sides are attached. We're going to do the same thing for the other last two pieces. You're going to make a mark 3/4 of an inch in from the top corner, and you're going to place this zipper in between those marks. So the lining piece is right side facing up, and so is your zipper. And then we're just going to quickly baste that along the top edge. And then again, we're taking the last zipper pouch exterior and we're placing that so it is right sides together. Always match those top corners first and then the rest. And then again, we're sewed along the top edge, this time with 1/4 inch seam allowance and back stitching at the beginning and the end. And now again, we cannot press, so we're doing the same method that we used to top stitch this side. Matching up these corners and clipping them. And then finger pressing and tugging as we top stitch. And again, remember that we're not top stitching all the way across. We're only top stitching along the zipper, back stitching at the beginning and the end. Okay, so now we have everything attached to the zipper. You're going to open your zipper part ways. Now, one thing about zipper pouches is that the corners at the end of the zipper are extremely difficult to have them looking a bit nice. So what I do first before I start anything else is, this is the reason why I didn't top stitch all the way to the ends. You're going to line up those seams here and open them up. And you're then going to clip on either side. Okay, before we sew anything else, this is what we're going to do first. And then we're just going to baste these seams together perfectly aligned so that we have the nicest top corners possible to our zipper pouch. Okay, so once we have the ends of the zipper basted, then we're going to clip the rest. Make sure that those swivels are inside the layers, in between the layers. Okay, once you have your two lining layers clipped together and the two exterior layers clipped together, you're going to sew all the way around, but you're going to leave an opening at the bottom of the lining pieces for turning, about 4 inches or so. Doesn't have to be exact, just make sure it's not too small. And backstitch when you start. Now for your lining pieces, you want to sew them with a slightly larger seam allowance. The reason why you want to sew your lining pieces with a slightly larger seam allowance is because you want the lining shell to be slightly smaller than the exterior, because you don't want your lining to be too big inside the pouch. So you'll start at 1/2 inch seam allowance backstitch, and then keep your 1/2 inch seam allowance. Except when you get to the top of the zipper here, you're going to have to reduce that to 3/8 of an inch. Maintain 3/8 of an inch along the pouch layers, and then again, once you're past the seam, you can increase again to 1/2 an inch, and then stop here and backstitch, leaving this open for turning. Now I recommend that you sew twice at the pouch swivel connector area, and just space it barely 1/8 of an inch apart. Okay, so we're going to trim our seam allowance. You're not trimming at the opening at all. You're going to trim the rest. Now at the connector area, I do not trim my seam allowance, and I do leave a little bit of the connector sticking out. I've seen connectors trim too short and then they just get yanked right out of the seam, which is upsetting on a finished pouch. Okay, same for this one. Do not trim at the connector. Leave a bit of connector sticking out. And then stop trimming when you get to close to the opening. Now we're going to turn your pouch right side out. Before we stick that lining in, I want to close that opening at the bottom of the lining pieces. So I'm going to turn in that seam allowance to the interior of the bag. Now don't forget we used 1/2 inch along the bottom there. And then just use some clips to hold that. And then I'm going to go over to the machine. I'm going to sew it shut. When I sew shut an opening like this, you could do it by hand if you want, but I always do it by machine because it's more secure. I use the tiniest seam allowance possible, just making sure that I capture both folded edges in the stitching. Okay, so that opening has been sewn shut, and I'm going to go ahead and stick that inside the pouch. And make sure that you poke your top corners of your pouch out. Okay, and now this is ready. We have our card slots here. And it also fits, well, it fits my iPhone. I have an iPhone 11 and it fits in there with room to spare. So that is ready now to clip to the D-rings of our bag. And now the last thing we need to do is sew the crossbody strap for the pouch, should you want to remove it and carry it on its own as like a quick little wallet. So we'll set this aside. Now, the sewing of this crossbody strap is identical to this one. So I'm going to take it off the bag. It's exactly the same. The only difference is, I'm not going to go through it again because I've just done it at the end of the last video. So you want to refer to video 3. It's identical except that we're using 1-inch wide webbing. So we're also using 1-inch hardware. And where you have swivels here, you're actually going to be attaching the D-rings. And the reason why it's the opposite is because the pouch has swivels. So we don't want to do 2 swivels. We're doing swivels on the pouch, and on the crossbody strap for the pouch, we're using D-rings in place of swivels, but it's sewn exactly the same way as you did this strap in the previous video. So that is the end of the tutorial. I hope that you enjoyed making the bag and that you learned something new. And I hope that you get a lot of use out of your Meadowsweet bag.